In this video, I want to show you how to make your own fertilizer in just a few minutes for free. You may be wondering, why on earth would a busy person like you bother making your own garden fertilizer when you can just nip to the garden centre, buy some, mix it up, add it to your fertilizing spraying gadget, and then spread it around your garden. Job done. Well, the first obvious reason is my version is free. And the second reason is that it's actually quicker than buying and mixing shop bought fertilizers. I mean, by the time you've driven there, bought your product, read the instructions, measured it out, mixed it up, and set up your newfangled spraying gadget and sprayed your garden, you've actually used up quite a lot of your valuable time. By making your own fertilizer my way, you don't even need to leave your home. Your product is mixed in less than 2 minutes and it won't harm your plants, wildlife, pets, kids if you don't read the instructions, because there aren't any instructions. And did I mention it's for free? The final reason is really to do with safety. I'm not suggesting for a minute these huge petrochemical companies that make billions from profits out of their products would put anything in their products to harm you, but I certainly wouldn't trust them. I mean, maybe that's just me. So I don't want that stuff around my pets, my kids, my beautiful wildlife, which I've nurtured for 8 years in this garden, and I certainly don't want this going on my food crops that I'm going to eat. I looked everywhere on these products and could not find any ingredients listed on the backs of the packaging. I mean, maybe I just didn't look hard enough, but I couldn't see anything telling me what these products were made of. If there is no transparency about what I'm buying, it's not going on my garden, near my pets, or in my body, and I'll keep my money in my wallet. Thank you very much. I have chosen to break my fertilizer down into 3 varieties. Don't worry, I promise you it is simpler this way. You've heard of NPK in fertilizer. This is short for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and no, I'm not going to bore you to death about what they all are. But these are the 3 feeding ingredients that plants need most, and the ones that are most quickly depleted in your garden because the plants use them up. Plants need all 3 of these in varying quantities depending on the type of plant and the stage of growth. Newer plants, which are bulking up their roots and foliage, in general need more nitrogen and phosphorus, and then the potassium is required to help them produce the fruit and the flowers, and then to maintain fruiting and flowering. So a classic example, of course, is that tomatoes need lots of potassium. But since plants need differing quantities of these at different stages, by separating out our nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium fertilizer, you can tailor your feeds for each plant as you get more experience and more knowledgeable about their individual needs. Now, you can go really deep down a rabbit hole looking into what each plant needs and when, but in general, if you use my fertilizers on your garden in fairly equal parts, then your garden plants should generally benefit. So to make the fertilizer, you will need some kind of container. I used old coffee jars as they're a little bit bigger than your average jar. If you have a huge garden, then of course you can scale up as required. I like the idea of a lid as well, so that I can't knock it over, because I'm always knocking things over. The size doesn't really matter in this instance, because the less the water there is, the more concentrated the fertilizer will be anyway. So you would just dilute it with more water anyway when you actually come to use it. Also worth noting, the longer it's in the jar, the more rich the fertilizer will become. I'm going to replace my fertilizer by succession making fertilizer, because as I use it, I top it up with water, which does dilute it over a period of time. So after about a month, I really want another fertilizer to be ready to use in its place. So we'll talk about now about each different feed. So for the potassium feed, I'm going to primarily focus on bananas, because I have a load of bananas that nobody's eaten and they've turned black and spotty. And yes, I could make banana bread. It does seem a bit of a waste, but my kids are all grown up. They all go off in different directions now. And if I make banana bread, I'm going to be eating all that banana bread. So I'm going to use it instead for a fertilizer. But there are other potassium-rich plants which you could use instead of bananas, such as the peels of oranges. Apples are another good source, as well are avocados, spinach, kale. If you think about how you need to feed tomatoes potassium, then that means any tomatoes that you haven't used up before they've started to go off are also going to be rich in potassium, which means you can use those. And aubergines and also carrots are another good substitute. And my carrots are always going off, my supermarket carrots. So I'm definitely going to be using some carrots next time. I mostly put my carrots on the compost heap, but they do just as good if you mushed them up and broke them down into little pieces and mushed them up, macerated them. They would still make a great fertilizer. For the nitrogen feed, I'm going to be using these coffee grounds that were left over from a filter coffee. But you can also use peas and beans, which are also an excellent source of nitrogen. So you can, after you've harvested them, you can, when you take up the plants, the spent plants, you can shred those down and use those, including even the pods. And that will give you a good source of nitrogen. You can also use alfalfa and clover, which you find pops up everywhere, all over your lawn, etc. For the phosphorus, I used grass and leafy weeds, and one of the best sources of phosphorus are nettles. And nettles are also high in potassium. So nettles are, you hear about people saying use nettles to make fertilizer. And yes, it is one of the probably the best products for natural products for making fertilizer. And the only reason I don't is because I guess because I have a cottage garden which I've worked on for so long, I just don't seem to have any nettles in my garden. So, but if I do, if I see any pop up, they're certainly going in my fertilizer for sure. The only disclaimer here would be if you're going to use like weeds such as nettles, don't use any that have gone to seed, because otherwise you'll just be sort of sowing the seeds around your garden in the fertilizer. All right, so you can use lots of different things to make each NPK. So you've got your potassium, your nitrogen, and your phosphorus, and you've got a good few ideas there that you can use to make each one separately. So all I do is I just take each ingredient and then I jam it into the jam jar, top it up with water, macerate it. You can either mash it, cut it up, shred it, shake it is a good one to release all the oils and help it break down more quickly and help the essential nutrients sort of seep into the water. And then you leave it for 3 days, 3 days minimum to get some benefit from it. But the longer you leave it, the darker and more concentrated that water and that fertilizer will get. So I would definitely recommend having a succession going so that you can use, so your first one is going to be a little bit weak, but you make a backup so that by the time you've used your first one, your backup is going to be really strong. And that will also take you into summer when the plants are more demanding for all those nutrients anyway. But you can use it after 3 days. I'm using it here on these tomatoes because I felt these tomatoes just desperately needed a boost. I don't know why they seem to be suffering. It could be that it's just a little bit cold, but I decided to give them a little bit of a nutrient boost just to see how they get on. I've got other tomatoes that are doing fine, so I don't know why these are suffering so much. So I decided to use the banana one after a few days just to give it a bit of a boost. Once I've used a bit of the fertilizer, I will top the jar up so that it keeps its level above the ingredients. I don't want them turning to slime. I want everything covered in the water. And then I'll give it another shake just to disperse all those nutrients around inside the water. And then, just label them. Also label them, put the date on so you know exactly how long you've had them, when you made them, how long they've been steeping. And then you'll know sort of when you'll start to get an idea of when you need to make backup fertilizers. Now, don't forget, all these are products that go on your compost heap. So, when you're putting them on your compost heap, you're also kind of making a fertilizer of your compost heap. So you can use that as well. But these are just more by steeping it in the water, you can sort of disperse it more quickly into the root system of the plants. I'll put the breakdown of the various ingredients that you can use various waste kitchen products, garden products that you can use for each variety of your fertilizer. I'll put that on my blog, on my website, so you don't have to keep running through the video trying to find where the bit where I said that. So I'll put that on my website, so don't forget to visit my website and be very forgiving, because I've been concentrating so much on these videos. I have slightly neglected my website, which is actually going to be revamped altogether. But the blog is fine. You can find a lot of stuff on the blog, and I'm going to be updating that tomorrow, hopefully, and catching up with that. But there you go. So there you are. Keep it separate, NPK, and make separate soils. You just need a jam jar. I mean, that's it. Depending on the size of your garden, of course. And this is what's great about this is you can also do this if you have a tiny little courtyard garden, because you can just keep this in a store cupboard somewhere and then use it as and when you need. So there you go. That's how I make fertilizer. Of course, I have my compost heap as well, which has food scraps and other garden waste, adding nutrients to it all the time. And I'm going to be doing another video about making a compost tea. But anyway, there you go. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe. Click the notification bell so that you know when I post another one. Like, and also share your comments and your own hints and tips in the comments below. Thanks for watching again. See you again soon. Bye.